On air, online, and on our app. Welcome to the Locker Room.
Oh, we got a guest, Grant Johnson. Let's set it up.
We do. Adam Scorgie from Scorgie Productions. The list of projects you've done is getting long. You can go back to the Culture High, Bisping, Ice Guardians, Inmate Number 1, The Rise of Danny Trejo.
I love that one.
Yeah, like I said, those are just a few of your projects that you have worked on.
Local filmmaker, local documentarian.
That's right.
Before we get into your most recent project, Dane Cook, what is out right now that you're plugging that has been released recently? Because we haven't had you around for a bit, so we got a little catch-up work to do.
Sure. So obviously you can watch Bisping, phenomenal doc on Mike the Count Bisping, former UFC champion, current host. That's available on most download platforms now. I think it's run on Super Channel has ended. Inmate Number 1, The Rise of Danny Trejo is available on Amazon. Everything. Making Coco, the Grand Fear story. Amazon. Ice Guardians. The Culture High, Chasing Evil, the Robbie Knievel story, who unfortunately just passed away this last year. So probably best to just go to the Scorgie Productions website. We've kind of set this all up now. And Scorgie spelled like score, like a goal with a G, Productions. If you Google that, we have a page of like where you can see everything.
Oh, awesome.
Probably the best way. And then it will kind of direct you to it. Most of them, if you go to Amazon Prime, is where you can get them now. They finished their broadcast runs and streamers. So easiest is just to search on there, and you'll probably find most of them.
I was going to say they are recommended to me on my Prime quite a bit, especially Ice Guardians. I see that one.
Yeah, it comes up. Yeah. So that's awesome. Now, you just got back from Boston. I sent you a note last week, and
Correct.
We talked, I think, a little bit, you and I, before you went, that you were doing this doc on Dane Cook. You know what's interesting about him? Because I've always sort of fancied myself a bit of I don't know, and Grant will call me out for this, but I get a sense of who people are.
Yep.
If you watch their work, and maybe you're a bit of a casual fan, but I can sort of sniff out whether or not somebody might be like Ellen DeGeneres. I always thought there was something going on there. Right? And I've been saying it for years.
You say that about anyone that's happy, though.
But turns out you were right there on the Ellen
DeGeneres.
I don't trust people who are too happy. And Dane Cook strikes me as a complete dick. Is he?
No, he's totally not.
Okay, all right. So I'm wrong.
Yeah. So what I will say though is Dane.
Kelly Rudy too.
No. What I'll say though is Dane has been very open going on this journey with him. Is that he suffered from major anxiety as a kid. So he actually had troubles. Like every day was a challenge for him to go to school, which is bizarre that he became this comedian selling out arenas before anybody.
Kidding.
But he found that was his way to connect with people because he didn't connect. Like humor was his way to find connection with humans. He was as he said, I had cystic acne. I was very odd. I had super anxiety. We just went to his neighborhood where he called it the puke tree, where he only made it to school half the time because he'd start walking and he'd have incredible anxiety and freak out, and he'd get to the puke tree and start puking, and his mom knew if he could get past the puke tree, he was going to head to school that day. If he didn't, he would come back, right?
Wow.
And he couldn't make it. So definitely, like every film, there's our challenges, and there's times like Dane's very, very, he understands production because he also built his career, unlike a lot of comedians did, right? Where through the MySpace days, in the Wild West, the organic days of the internet, right? Where you could directly connect with your audience.
I've heard his name come up with respect to MySpace. Like
he was the king.
He was like the guy on the front end of that, and that a lot of people in the comedic world and comedy sort of used his start as a blueprint for how to be on social media and how to
you nailed it.
Further your career,
which
is interesting.
He was the first, and because he was so he had high anxiety. Like he loved actually sitting at home and responding to everybody. He would spend hours responding. And then he said, when I would get messages from people like, man, I came to your show and I was actually thinking about hurting myself and your show inspired me to keep going. He would deliberately, those people, he would be like, hey, Jimmy, like, thankfully you so happy you came. I've got another show coming up in 2 months. I'll send you some tickets. Why don't you come see me? Right? Like, wow. He connected what he called with his army in a way that no other comedian did. Right? He was the first. it was actually interesting because we did this kind of similar with the Union when Facebook and everything, the algorithms were truly free and you could just connect with everybody.
Yeah.
And he was going through how awesome MySpace was when it started, that, I could message. I got millions of followers and I was selling out arenas and other comedians were getting pissed at me because they're like, you haven't fucking done the grind for 10 years and blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I swore there. But,
It's okay.
but he's like,
we'll catch it in delay.
Yeah. But, people got really mad because they didn't like that. You didn't suffer for 6 years and going, but he found a way to connect to the audience and he made them feel part of the journey and he sold out arenas long before people were doing that.
His story's crazy because I'm 34.
Yeah.
When I was just starting to kind of find stand-up comedy and stuff, Dane Cook was like
The guy.
the man.
Yeah.
Like early 2000s, Dane Cook was enormous. And then his movies were awesome. Good Luck, Chuck. And
Shot Here? Right?
Yeah. Was that Shot Here? I didn't even know.
Part of
I
the
did
Shot
not
Here,
know
Jessica
that.
Alba, yeah.
Employee of the Month,
Yeah.
like another great one. And then he kind of just disappeared, and then his brother stole all his money. And
So that's why he disappeared. You want to talk about a survivor, man. So, it's so crazy that he had such anxiety and such challenges as a kid, but he found comedy as his way to connect because he didn't connect with people, right?
Yeah.
Humor was his way to find connection. And then, obviously, being able to go in front of these amazing crowds, right? Like, he's still the only comedian that sold out Boston Garden twice in one night.
Wow.
Rolled it over. 18,000 fans for the first show, 18,000 fans again for the second show.
It's funny. I don't know him that well, but I know that.
Yeah.
Like, I know that story about him. Is he still sort of viewed as a bit of an outsider in the comedic world, or has he been included in the club? Because you kind of alluded to the fact that there's a lot of jealousy in that group, and maybe it's changed a bit. Like Rogan talks about creating more of a community now around that group, the comedians. But I always got the sense that he was kind of, even with his fame, he was outside looking in.
Yeah, I think, definitely now he's one of the greats to come out of Boston there for it. And he was on Killer's Row. Like, he was coming up. He keeps telling stories. Me and Burr and Rogan and Al Del Benny and what's the black comedian that just passed away a few years ago that was really...
I know who you're talking about,
They were
yes.
all out of Boston. All came
Tracy
up
Morgan?
together.
No, passed away.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Good friends with
Think
Bill
of
Burr.
Heavier Guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they all were, coming up together, as young punks.
Patrice.
Patrice.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Patrice. All hearing these stories, I'm like, man, he's like, yeah, we used to go perform at the Cow Long restaurant, this Chinese restaurant, for free for food. All together. Me, Burr, Patrice would all. I'm like, dude, you guys are all legends. He's like, yeah, that was Boston comedy at the time. So definitely is respected now in the comedic world. He's got a style. Every comedian has a style, and his is a storytelling style, right?
Yeah.
So some people don't like that, right? Some people like more of the punchline jokes. Joe Rogan's kind of a storytelling comedian too, right? Other guys are more. So it depends on what you like. Comedy now that there's so many good comedians with the internet, they can connect with people in a way. I think people are more picky too, right?
I think you're right. For instance, I mean, we talk about this all the time. There's certain comics that are massive that I've never really connected with. Like Kevin Hart. I do not get his material.
I don't love his material either.
I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but he'll come to Rogers and sell it out, and people love him, right? And then there's comics that I find funny. Like, I don't know if you've seen that Shane Gillis.
Yeah, Shane Gillis, yeah.
I watched his special on Netflix yesterday, and my face still hurts. I was in my kitchen crying, laughing, and he is so wildly offside, right? Like, I'm guessing a lot of people would be like, what did he just say?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everybody has the thing. But there is a Boston thing. Did you guys did you dig into that with this doc?
Yeah, we're going into, and I think it's like blue collar hard towns create, that turmoil of the ruggedness that you need the humor to balance, right? So I think in those hard times it balances out. I think when you look at all those legends that came from the same time period there, and you're just like, my God, they all came around and were all working for free at Kowloon going through. But steel sharpened steel too. That's why they all got better too, right? They were all. So we talk about that, and Dane's story isn't great. Talk about a survivor is that. So Boston Garden, he originally was put up there before a concert. His first time when he wanted to play Boston Garden was he had to go in between a performance for the band Fish, right?
Oh, wow.
And no one wanted comedy. They were kind of literally, they went up there with him, and they were called Alan the Monkeys. It was as a group. And everyone was like, why is there comedy up here? They literally got, flip-flops and lighters thrown at them to get off the stage. So his first time going to Boston Garden as a Boston local was not the dream he was expecting, right? They got thrown off. But then to come back, whatever, how many years later, sell it out. Like everyone, his whole family gets emotional. Like, you've never seen anything like it. Like floor to ceiling for a comedian in the round, right? In a center stage with no back, right? So he's like, it's a different way of performing because you'll go like this and you have to turn quick to do a punchline, right? Because you have to keep the whole audience engaged.
Yeah.
To go back to back, 18,000 people out, 18,000 people. And while all that's going on, he's hitting the pinnacle of his career. His mother's dying in cancer. There was the first show she couldn't make it to. She was in Florida in hospice. And his brother was just
stealing
everything.
Wow.
Everything. His brother took everything, but his brother tried.
Did he get any money back from his brother?
Oh, so you learn. We just interviewed the district attorney, and just they pull their hair out because white collar crime is such a slap on the wrist. You can steal from people, and it's like. His brother got,
especially in the States,
he got 5 to 7 years, and he was out in 3.5 with good behavior, and he has to pay remuneration now, but he pays something like $50 a week or $100 a month or something like that. Yeah,
Really?
And the investigation found that his brother had taken just over $12 million or $13 million.
Wow.
What's he doing now? Like, I know he's still doing the odd comedy, like he's still doing that, but does he live in Boston and hang out in the old neighborhood?
He lives in L.A. He's getting married at the end of the month. Found a great girl, Kelsey. She's an awesome lady. We've met her lots and still working on his craft. Always working. He just did a special, Above It All, last week, which Above It All, going to bed. Crushed it. He got undervalued at Netflix and everything, so he went back to his old school roots and sold it on Moment and crushed and did very well. And then everybody's like, "Hey, your special's doing good. We'd like to have you back." And he's like,
"No,
I went to you guys, offered me nothing, so I did it myself." So no, he miraculously, or like he's so I don't know the word I'm looking for, good at overcoming turmoil because he earned all his money back in like 3 years. So he doesn't care about what his brother took.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
how did you get hooked up with him?
So he's a huge documentary guy, loves them, and is like a fanatic of them. And he'd watched Inmate, and then he'd met my producing partner, Rocky Medalliar, who's originally an Edmonton boy, now lives in BC. And then Rocky's like, Adam, like, dude, Dane Cook wants to do a doc. And I knew Dane Cook kind of like you did when I was like, I'm the man, when he had the Kool-Aid joke and everything, right? When he's like, oh, yeah, oh, no. I have to explain to my dad a giant fruit bowl just jumped through the wall, right? Like, so I was like, man, that's cool. But I didn't know, I kind of like you, I was like, man, I remember being in movies. I didn't know what happened, right? And then everybody's like, oh, he fell off. Like, he's doing very well. He's still working and making a ton of money. But he's like, Adam, my career was like this, right? I was doing these big movies. I was the biggest comedian in the world. I was selling out. There's only one place it can go. You can't continue that for years. It goes like this. Then people start hating on you, and they don't like your special.
You become Nickelback.
And he had, like
he's kind of the Nickelback of comedians.
Like, that's a good comparison, right? Still wicked talented, but like got so big that people just started to hate, and they didn't like that he did it in a non-traditional way. And he found these big audiences, and he made a ton of money. And even though his brother tried to, like, his brother didn't just take his money. His brother tried to sewer him too. Left him with a giant tax bill to the IRS. Like, his brother tried to sink him, right? Like, and that's the part is Dane saw our work and wanted to do it, and he's really looking for healing because he just doesn't understand. His brother is one of the first people when he was a real introvert and couldn't leave the house. His brother was one of the first people. He's like, I remember definitively when my brother and I bonded when we went to go see Die Hard. Right, when he was a teenager, he took me in his car. And again, Dane's a storyteller, so his interviews are top 5 we've ever done. Like, he's so good at putting that humor, but emotion, but also hooking you. And he talks about, like, he remembered Die Hard, and they went to the theater, and they had burgers. Like, oh my God, like, my brother, and like this, now I have a brother, right? We're connecting. And Dane has got, like, kind of dyslexia with numbers. So when he started to get money in, his brother's like, Dane, let me handle this for you. You just do... And of course, you trust your brother. Like, the only thing when you look at, you're like, well, how did his brother get away with this? And it was like, the love of family is one of the words. Like, Dane trusted his brother, never even thought about it. Said, you're handling that. And they were together, their career skyrocketed, right? So he's like, we're handling things. But then when he got too big, he's like, okay, I need to bring in a professional firm to make sure, like, taxes in different states, because I'm performing all over are being done. And that's when things started, when it was Rich Feldstein, who's a big investment guy in L.A., actually Jonah Hill's father.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, hey, and then
6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
So we'll be interviewing him here in October or November. But
you got a target date for the Dane Cook doc?
Don't know. We got most of it in the can already because we shot this big shoot, and then so we've got about 80%. But the big thing we're trying to line up is we'd really like to interview Dane's brother and the wife, right? So we're trying to find ways to make that happen. So obviously,
you guys dig for the story,
Yes.
right? That's the interesting thing about your docs, and you're trying to basically show both sides, right?
And that's what we said. We talked to. So Dane's still
What did Dane say when you said we got to get your brother on this?
He's the one that offered it.
What?
He's looking. This is how great. This is how much a brother's love is like. He wants to forgive his brother. He can never trust him business wise, but he doesn't. Like he wants to know why. Like why? How could you do that? And look, Dane was not doing this. His brother wasn't doing his favor. Dane was paying his brother $150,000 a year plus traveling the world, expenses. Like it was a great gig.
It was already a gig.
Right?
Yeah,
It wasn't like he was like, hey, you're just doing me a favor. And yeah, his brother. I mean, we just interviewed the cops where they found like $800,000 cash in the walls of places. They hid it in pizza boxes and pasta sauce and in the yard and under flower pots. They found, I think they ended up finding like $3 million cash buried in various locations.
What the hell?
Yeah.
This is a great story.
Oh, it's going to have everything because Dane keeps wanting to make sure there's humor. Like, even he can laugh. He's like, I know it's ridiculous to give your brother full access to everything, right? Like,
yeah.
But that's the story, right? That he's like, and he didn't realize till Rich Feldstein came on board, and then they're like, send us all the paperwork. And then Dane's brother wasn't sending everything. And then Dane
was like,
then he was trying to get a hold of his brother, and he wasn't answering.
Yeah.
And Dane like woke up middle of the night. He's like, he fucking took everything, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, keep us posted on that when that one comes out.
100%.
Okay.
We'll most likely have Dane here. We're looking to do, the cool thing with this is he's looking at like, he's kind of developing comedy as we're going through this, right?
Yeah.
So he's kind
Just
of trying
working
to
on a new
time
special.
where he's got another, he'll have one that comes out before then, but he's working on stuff because he hasn't told a ton of jokes about his brother. Right. Other than if you remember back in the day, Grant, he'd talk about Burger King when he's he thought he was the Burger King because his brother was the manager there, right? And he's like the BK Lounge, right? Because his brother, like when you start reflecting, Dane's like, I look back and I'm like, there's these signs. Like when I worked for my brother at Burger King, he put everybody's name in pen on the sheet, but he put mine in pencil just to be like, I could erase you anytime, right?
Wow.
So. Anyway, where he's looking at developing stuff that when the doc comes out, he's also got
something ready to go.
Talking about,
which will probably be on Netflix.
Probably.
There he is, Adam Scorgie. Look him up. What's the webpage again, Adam?
Just go to Scorgie Productions. If you Google it, like Score Like a Goal, Big G Productions, you'll find it has all our work up there in the various platforms. A lot of it is, I'm trying to think if anything's on Super Channel right now. No, none of it's on Super Channel right now, but they're our biggest funder, and they're right here out of Canada, out of Edmonton.
Beautiful. And you've probably seen his work, and you might not even know it. Right?
Exactly.
Adam's got a great team and locally based. Thank you. We always love having you down here.
Oh, no, I love you coming on. Thanks for always supporting me and my team.
Take care, brother.
The Locker Room for Arden Roof Systems. Weekday mornings on 95.7 Cruise FM.